Hello, everybody. Thank you for coming on this session about Volkswagen Cloud using automation to scale security. I'm Joaquin Rinaudo, and I'm a principal security consultant with AWS. I'm here with my colleague, Stefan. Perhaps I'll let you introduce yourself.
Hi everyone, I'm Stefan Teuber. I'm a security officer with Volkswagen and working for around 4 years now in the program.
Awesome, thank you. So we're going to talk to you today about how we build a security foundation that is enabling more than 1,000 developers to innovate fast while staying secure and compliant. We're going to share our lessons learned, best practices for the last 4 years, and how you can implement similar security transformations that can enable your business. To do that, Stefan will give a short introduction on Volkswagen Group, the industrial cloud platform being developed called Digital Production Platform, or DPP, and the role of the security team within that organization. We'll then jump right into the actual challenges we had when working in security at this level of scale, and how we solved these problems, not only through technology, but also covering people and processes aspects as well. Finally, I'm going to come back to tell you about how we design the security journey together and how you can enable similar security programs within your organization. So with that, Stefan.
Thank you. So, in case you don't know the Volkswagen Group, we provide mobility for millions of people every day. In the last year, our 675,000 colleagues produced over 8.7 million vehicles in 125 plants of factories worldwide. And those plants are also the scope and the point of interest of this presentation. Because everything that we will show you today, everything we built, is on how we enabled our customers. So those colleagues working in the plants, dealing with production and logistics processes, and by extent, the developers that build solutions that then provide a business value for our customers. And when we think of the 125 plants, we also need to think of the huge amount of sensors, of actuators, of the millions of components, of the thousands of robots that we have, and the tens of thousands of partners and suppliers that we communicate with, collaborate with, and exchange data and goods with on a daily basis. Some of our customers just require a basic dashboarding capability. Others need assistance when it comes to quality assurance, and others need assistance in terms of production planning. The whole digital production platform collaboration is a program that is initially scheduled for 5 years. And all of the central DPP teams, so also including the security team, are staffed on a 50-50 basis. So half of the team members are Volkswagen Group employees, and half of the team members are colleagues from AWS, like in the case of Joaquin, from professional services, but some team members are also from the AWS service teams. This presentation is called Using Automation to Scale Security. And you now might rightfully wonder, okay, Stefan, where's the automation and where's the security that you want to scale? And to explain that, I would like to invite you on a short journey, on a trip back to a point in time 3 or 4 years ago, when this whole program started. We will show you what we did to achieve what we achieved. Everything we show you today is real. So there's not a single slide in this deck claiming an intention or an idea or something we want to do or could do or plan to do. Everything we did is something we have active in all of our accounts, from the dev stage to the production impacting prod stages. So, who are we? When the whole program started, Volkswagen and AWS committed on creating a joint security team. We started as a team of 4 security engineers, and now we are a team of 12. We own the security of the platform, where our developers and customers then can build solutions on top of that. The vision we had in mind was to integrate the know-how that we learned from our AWS journey and integrate that into the Volkswagen security processes and transform our security organization doing so. We can then contribute back to the overall company, and this is the main idea. All of this while ensuring compliance to our IT regulations and requirements, but still enabling the developers to move fast and innovate the company. And turns out, developers like being fast, and developers want to build solutions and transform the company, but that has a price tag attached to it. Some of those might imply a security or compliance challenge. And I intentionally chose the word challenge here. It's not a problem, it's not an issue. It's just something that we need to plan for. DPP grew pretty quickly. We started with around 30 projects in 300 AWS accounts, and we are looking at roughly 180 projects in 1,000 AWS accounts in less than 2 years. Security functions needed to find a way to scale so that we can actually support this growth without completely exploding in terms of headcount or budget. Volkswagen relies quite a lot on internal platforms. We built those so we can reduce the undifferentiated heavy lifting, which is an AWS term that I shamelessly stole for the purpose of this presentation. It's basically all the stuff that someone should do so that others don't have to do it all by themselves. So this includes vending secure AWS accounts, defining guardrails, and integrating into risk management and other governance structures. When we do this, teams want to build in a secure way, or at least we want them to build in a secure way, and we need to provide them the tools to do so. Teams need to have the security posture at their hand so that they can perform informed decisions. We are not only building for teams built in Wolfsburg, Germany, where our headquarters is located. We have customers in the America regions, we have customers in other brands like Schroeder Auto, Audi, Porsche. They all have similar, but not necessarily the same requirements. DPP needs to ensure that all those customers can have a safe and secure cloud journey. And the last topic is something I guess most of you know that are working in security. There's a disparity when it comes to the ratio of developers and security engineers. Think of the big pink bubble behind me as the sum of all the developers that build solutions in DPP, so all the developers in the product teams. They want to launch services and have cool ideas in mind for their customers. They reach out to us as security to get their approval to launch, and they can launch. Sounds good? I agree. This is all good and fun until you realize, as a security team, that you're on the critical path. And as soon as DPP started to grow and continue to grow, this became more and more of an issue. We as a team needed to find smart ways to scale, and right now we're looking at 1,100 AWS accounts with 1,600 people having access to those accounts, working with the DPP AWS accounts. And this is where we were at, and this is what we did to ensure that our customers can move fast while staying secure. In the preparation of this presentation, we identified 5 key topics that helped us to shape the journey and shape the organization as we have it today. We'll start with more organizational topics, then speak about cultural ones, and end with the technical aspects that we did. And it all starts with ownership. In this case, security ownership that we needed to distribute. And that's more than just putting a name on a list. It's more than the term accountability. It's something that people actually need to embrace, and this is not something you can enforce. As soon as you have a product team that actually wants to run what they're building and that want to secure what they are running, then you are in a much better position than when you do not have those teams. As of today, we have a coverage of 99.7% of all accounts that have a specified security contact that we can reach out to in case we need to. But this is not a unidirectional thing. The teams also get something from us in return. We provide daily generated security metrics for all the 200 projects that we have in DPP. And these are not just numbers, this is actual guidance on what teams can do to improve their security posture in their accounts for their product and for their project. But turns out this is all good and nice, but like in every communication, the recipient of the communication needs to understand what you want from them. So we somehow need to scale the application security expertise inside the product teams. We tried this the other way, and this somewhat failed, because having only a central security team will not speed up the team's performance and will not allow the teams to launch any faster. Here we think communication is key. And what we did is to come up with our implementation of the DPP Security Guardian program. You might have similar aspects or similar programs in your companies and organizations as well. Maybe you call them security champions. We call them the security guardians. And for me, a guardian is a member of a product team within DPP who is interested in security, wants to learn more, is a developer of his team, and wants to positively influence the security status of their product. We provide trainings to the guardians. We run yearly game days where we mix and match random guardians together and throw them into scenarios that they need to fix in a gamification way. We provide monthly exchanges where the guardians can explain what they did, and maybe someone else can grab the idea. We also are utilizing other gamification aspects. Like in every good mobile game, there are points to collect and badges to earn. So for example, in all the newsletters that we send around, at the bottom there's a small section with a small riddle, a scenario question, and the person answering this in the correct way, as the fastest, can earn some points, but also we award the most creative solution to this problem with some points. But I also spoke about badges, didn't I? This, what you can see behind me, is our learning path for Guardians. So there are several trainings that the Guardians can take, and as soon as they progress further, there are more badges that they can earn, meaning we have more trust in those colleagues actually owning the security that they have, all up to an AWS certification, in this case, the security specialty. As of today, we're looking at 40 trained Guardians, and we also created a few how-to videos. So, for example, what do you do in case you are awarded or assigned a ticket? But also basic stuff like, what is a security guardian? Because trust me, after the 20th time, you're no longer interested in explaining what a guardian is. And the quality suffers doing so. And this is also a way for us to scale. If you have a properly created video, it's much easier for a new joiner in the Guardian community to simply watch the video, skip the parts they're not interested in, and then reach out to me for 5 minutes to answer any open questions. The videos also contain examples of typical good and bad practices that we see in the organization. And we derive those from the AWS service guardrails that we design, establish, and publish. We think it's important to focus on the important aspects first. People need to be assisted when it comes to prioritization. We want to raise the right bar when it comes to security. It's always easy to use any solution out there, any security posture management solution, and tick all the boxes. Ask teams to do it all. But it's important to focus, and this is what we're doing. What we did is, well, we started what everyone most likely did. We started with AWS Security Hub and enabled the controls there, which was all good and fine. But we realized that we also wanted to put the Volkswagen regulations into code, because it's a pain checking them manually. But how do you transform a control, or rather a requirement that is written in natural language, in a regulation, into a proper and good control? There are several ways to do that, but which one is the best? And to decide that, we started defining criteria what a good control should be like. These are aspects like the costs of implementing the control and the risks involved, and this is plural. First, the risk that you mitigate using this control, but also a potential risk that you introduce into the organization by deploying this control. For example, looking at false positives. And the last aspect that we usually look into are the operation efforts. As soon as someone claims they have a good proposal for control, a council comes together. And the council members are comprised from Volkswagen security members, from the platform team. We always invite the person who is proposing the new control, and of course from us, from the DPP security team. We evaluate alternatives and validate that the proposed control actually matches the regulations that we have in place. As soon as this is done and approved, we create the documentation, create changelog entries, and prepare the deployment. All of these steps that you can see here are fully automated with two exceptions. First, of course, defining the control. This is still a manual task. And there's an approval phase, which is manual after the council meeting. Everything else, so creating documentation, deploying to the systems, this is all automated. Speaking of deployment, we test with friendly customers first. And we are very happy to have those friendly customers. Most of them are guardians who voluntarily raised their hand and said, well, please give me more findings. We will never escalate on them, though, of course. We do not abuse the trust of those who volunteered to help us provide a better service. But as soon as the test phase is over and we confirmed that the controls are working, we move to production. And here, we will create tickets to the teams that are not following our requirements and expectations. This is automated as well, of course. As soon as AWS Security Hub identifies a finding, a Lambda function is invoked, which then creates a ticket in our Jira system and assigns it to the security contact. Then the team fixes the issue, resulting in Security Hub the finding to be closed, or rather archived. As soon as this is the case, a new Lambda function is triggered, which then closes the ticket state in Jira. And this is bidirectional, because the teams can also reach out to us via the ticket and claim that they have an exception in place or that this is a false positive. We will then suppress the finding on the AWS side if necessary. As of today, we're looking at 50 controls that we pushed through this process, and we aim to get full coverage so that we have a full set of controls that we feel fully comfortable with. This is the ideal scenario. We identify an issue, teams fix it, and that's that. But looking at an organization with 1,600 people, things will go wrong, and people will not always follow our expectations. The normal approach here would be to escalate, for example, to the team's manager. But turns out escalations, A, are not very fun. That's probably no surprise to anyone. But also they are pretty costly in terms of time investment, also for us as a team. And as we cannot scale as much as our customers can scale with their projects, we need to find a better way. And what we're doing here is, as a replacement for escalations, we are fixing resource configurations in our customer accounts automatically. For that, we are starting with low-hanging fruits, obviously. And I want to apologize in advance for the example that I will show you. You will have seen this example 10, 15 times, but it's a great example And don't worry, I will change this headline, which will appear in a second on the right side in a minute. How do you close down a public S3 bucket? Situation here is a customer is leaking data through a bucket, and you don't want this to happen as security team. Technically, the answer is pretty simple. Just enable S3 block public access, which, by the way, in case you haven't read the blog post, is also now a standard setting for all buckets created for a few weeks now, totally independent on how you created this bucket. This is an easy example. But let me rephrase the question. How do you close down a public S3 bucket that is not yours? You have no idea what is in this bucket. It can be totally not important. It can be relevant to a process. You have no idea. Looking at 1,100 accounts, we don't know everyone. We don't know all applications. Technically, the answer is the same. Enable S3 block public access. Can be done on a bucket level or on a per account level. But process-wise, and especially communication-wise, this is a bit more tricky. So this is an example of a low-hanging fruit, because it's very easy to fix. We also prioritize those finding types where we have a lot of findings, so where volume is key here, and also those that are pretty critical for us as an organization, especially looking at data that leaks. I would like to rephrase the question one last time. How do you close down a public SQS queue that is not yours? Queues don't have a setting like block public queue access. All is done and controlled via the resource policy of that queue. So you either need to manipulate the JSON, or you need to totally clean the bucket policy, resulting in the queue only being available to the AWS account itself. Here we need to balance risk and impact. Of course, we can do the easy way and just block everything except for the account itself. But especially looking at queues, there might be workflows desired to have access to other accounts. What we did as a trade-off, we are now changing the bucket policy to block any access outside our AWS organization. And for that, precision is important, because we need to be very precise, both in communication, but also in the action that we code, because this can have an impact. This will have an impact on the customer. We're no longer looking only at dev stages. This will have an impact on the customer. So we need to be very clear here what we are doing. And to help this, we're always defining grace periods. So we will not enable things overnight. Instead, we send out communication to the teams and then grant all the teams a 3-month grace period until we activate this remediation action in production accounts, allowing all the teams to plan for that and include that into their planning cycles. Right now, we are covering 15 types of remediation actions, and in the last 90 days, we've performed 1,200 actions, meaning we reduced the amount of escalation actions that we needed to do by 1,200, and also sparing the teams a lot of time having to deal with us, where it's an option where we could do something automatically. But I want to emphasize that this is not the way we want it to be. It's just a replacement for escalations. It's not a replacement for changing this in code, and it's not a replacement for training. So I guess we covered everything, right? Unless something goes wrong that we didn't plan for. And this is where the aspect comes into place that I mentioned in one of my first slides. We wanted to reshape and modernize our own security organization. And for that, we need to react fast when something happens, especially looking at incidents. and while doing that, reinvent our own existing processes. I would like to throw you in a scenario. Imagine it's Saturday, 2 a.m., and you receive a notification from Amazon GuardDuty claiming that one of your instances is currently performing crypto mining activities. Would you see this message? Would anyone in your company react on that? Would anyone actually know what to do? Or would we all have to wait until it's Monday morning and the developer is back in office? For us at security, it's vital to reduce this time span between detection of an incident and remediation of an incident. We want to reduce this time as much as possible to reduce the attack surface that we have in the internet. Because in this time, we are very vulnerable, not only for this instance, but also for other systems that are directly connected to that impacted instance via lateral attacks. So what we did here, we are using automation, because automation does not go home at 5 p.m. on Friday. Automation will also take over the night shift. And what we did here is an architecture which is pretty similar like this one. I intentionally simplified this a bit. So whenever we identify a finding in Amazon GuardDuty, a Lambda function is invoked. And this Lambda function then creates a snapshot of the impacted EC2 instance, connects via SSM to that instance, and runs a few commands like listing the processes, listing all the network connections that are currently active, perform memory dumps when necessary, and whatever might be specified by the involved parties. We then isolate that instance, removing all network connectivity from that instance. This information then is bundled together and sent to our Security Operations Center, which is available 24/7. This actually helped us to reduce the time between detection and remediation down to a couple of minutes, effectively lowering the attack surface that we provide to the world. And from an incident responder's point of view, this is also very helpful, because they suddenly now have all the information they might need at hand. They have the logs from CloudTrail. They have any results from the commands we run. And yes, I'm well aware that logs and any commands you run on an infected instance cannot be trusted, but it's still better than nothing, especially when you want to compare the results to those of other potentially impacted instances or devices within the company. And here, we also are reducing the evidence collection time down to roughly 5 minutes. So let's summarize. I spoke about 5 main aspects that helped us reshape and modernize our own security organization. I spoke about organizational aspects, cultural ones, and technical ones. You might have seen architecture diagrams like that one before. But we are not a security consulting company. We build cars, and actually quite a lot of them. And for us, it's a great achievement, earning this trust that we got over the years, that we can perform these actions. This is not a playground. This is live as of right now for over a year now, and performing actions whenever necessary. And for us, that's a pretty cool achievement. But also numbers-wise, this is, I think, quite a success story here. Comparing the numbers of beginning of 2022 with end of 2022, we upped our security compliance level for critical findings from 96% to 99.99%, based on the percentage of compliant resources against the AWS Security Hub checks. And same for high severity, where we improved from 83% to 98.2%. We trained 40 Guardians. And what is most important for me, and for me personally, the best outcome, We reduced the number of stale tickets in Jira by 50%, which might sound just like a hygiene thing, but this actually allowed us to focus on other activities and also allowed the teams to focus on activities where we couldn't assist them in an automated way with. And if you ever find yourself in a situation like the one we've been in for the past years, you might want to listen to Joaquin's words now very carefully, because he will tell you how you can perform a similar journey, and if you want to do this, where you can start if you want to modernize your security organization.
Thank you, Stefan. So how did we design this journey, and how can you design similar security strategies? Not all cloud journeys are the same, but they do follow similar patterns. You can use the well-architected framework to help you identify security best practices that you can apply to your AWS organizations. But then you need to define a way to translate these best practices to a plan that you can actually roll out. For that, you can use the AWS Security Maturity Model. This is an opinionated guidance from a team of security specialists that can help you define the right journey for you. In the last 12 months, it has over 40,000 downloads, and it's being currently in use by 100 solutions architects to help customers such as you to improve your security posture. You can use this to implement what we call phases that most likely your journey will go through. And the model gives you an assessment tool that can take the key elements of a successful cloud security program and map them to the phases that you see on the screen. You can start what we call the quick wins. These are, in the case of DBP, enabling AWS Security Hub or Amazon Guard Duty across the organization. And these are things you can do within 1 or 2 weeks. Then you need to move into more of a foundational step when you select the right initiatives that drive the foundation for your security, such as selecting the right security controls for your developers. Once you move to more efficient phase, you're starting to think about how to scale cloud security governance at scale. Like Stefan mentioned today, the Guardians program that we built together. Finally, when thinking about moving to an optimized phase, you're starting to use automations to improve your security posture on a day-to-day basis. Examples are the escalation, automated remediation, or automated incident response. But there are over 60 key elements and best practices that you need to implement. How can you prioritize them? So security teams usually use the approach of, I take a solution, I'll figure out what is the benefit to my security posture, and what are my efforts required to, in terms of cost, operations, or deployment time to implement such a solution. You map things, and then, as we call out, you start with the quick wins and move down as you go along. But there's a better approach, the one that we took in DBP. Think also as well as how are the controls you're introducing affecting the developer experience. What do I mean by developer experience? Is the control going to require more efforts for the developer to implement security? Or does it solve or reduce the security underappreciated heavy lifting for them? The easier security becomes, the more we enable our developers to focus on the business value. So now you will have a more three-dimensional setup of initiatives to improve. But let me give you a more concrete example from DBP. We needed to implement what is called internet egress filtering. Applications needed to specify explicitly which domains they needed to connect to. One approach would have been to use outbound proxies. But then developers would have needed to set up their Lambdas, code builds, or EC2s to make them proxy aware. And we didn't migrate to that. Instead, we opted in for the AWS Network Firewall solution. This is allowing our developers to reduce the efforts to implement the security control of internet filtering and still meet the requirement that we need to implement. So once you started to define the 3 to 5 initiatives that you want to work on, you need to validate them before getting started with your cloud security strategy. AWS provides you the widest range of security services upon which you can build on top. We offer free trials for many of these services. You can use these free trials to build proof of concepts that allow you to test your ideas, assess your cost, and the efforts really required to roll out a full-fledged solution. And only then you move where they find the right plan for you. What do I mean by the right plan? You should consider for the 3 or 5 initiatives you selected for the first iteration, one of these options. Try to use existing AWS solutions available for you, such as the automated security response that can implement the remediation process that Stefan mentioned today, or prescriptive guidance that you will find has available the Shia integration that we built for Volkswagen. As well, you can check out our latest blogs to find code that can help you get started or automatically responding to guard duty events in a well-defined fashion. This allows you to not reinvent the wheel and accelerate the pace of your initiatives. Another option you have available is to build it yourself when you cannot find anything that works. Start with the AWS security workshops to know more about the service, the security configurations that you can enable, and then move to infrastructure as code using Cloud Development Kit, CloudFormation, to automatically set up your deployments across your organization. Last but not least, you can team up with a team of AWS experts that can help you accelerate your initiatives. AWS provides to you the largest network of partner and consultancy services available. You want to leverage them when you need security initiatives to be built from day number 1. A concrete example is going back to the internet filtering. We don't want to wait 2 years to implement the network firewall, because then you will be asking your developers to stop the focus on the business to start implemented efforts on network migrations. You want to have it from day number 1, and this is a suitable candidate for having a partner or consultancy help you build it. So with that, you now learn the basis of defining your first cloud security strategy by assessing your current security posture, prioritizing the first iteration of your elements, validating with proof of concepts, and then defining the right plan just to get started. Now, I'm going to hand back to Stefan to actually wrap up on everything that we talked about today. Thank you.
Thank you. So let's recap. We spoke about the 5 key topics that helped us to modernize or influence our own security organization. And I think we can group them together into 2 big aspects. The first being collaboration. And if I were to give you 5 take-home messages today, those would be the first 2. Start by aligning on how you can develop your engineers as informed security owners, and then group them together and pilot a Guardian community and a Guardian program, and let this interest in security ownership grow. And the second big topic is the undifferentiated heavy lifting. As a reminder, all the stuff that someone should do to reduce the pain of others. Find out where your developers are suffering and be that someone. Provide a solution for your developers. Don't focus just on regulations. Build something that actually helps your teams overcoming security topics that might be an issue for them and solve them for them by providing automated solutions or opt-in blueprints. And last but not least, always remember to self-assess yourself and identify key topics that you want to improve on your security journey. For example, using the AWS Security Maturity Model that we just spoke about. And with that, I would like to thank you, Joaquin, for being here on stage with me, and all of you guys for attending this presentation. Thank you very much.